Typical situation of love sports as a kid, played all the sports, baseball, football, basketball. My father was 6'5". I'm not. Um, I used to ask my mom, seriously, but he's 6'5". When's this going to happen? Um, so the college football wasn't in my future, and I wanted to do something. So joined the local gym and found out that that was something I really liked and I could do, even being short in stature. And then by some chance, walked into the what was the best gym in the city, and there's Jim Manion. Now I didn't know Jim who Jim Manion was at that time, but I quickly found out that yeah, that's the guy that runs bodybuilding, and he couldn't have been cooler. Um, I did it right. I was quiet, kept my mouth shut, kept my eyes open and my ears open, and learned. And before long, I was getting ready for a bodybuilding contest with some other guys, the Mr. Pittsburgh, and they dropped out of it. I kept going. And then after that fact, I started to work for Jim, helping to run his backstage, and luckily learned everything from the ground up with who's better to learn from, frankly.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
And having that that true mentorship of almost by chance, by walking in the right day, he was there, you saw him, like it all just kind of came together in this pure like destiny moment. It feels like, when you look back on it, does it feel like that?
I'm a I'm a monster believer in fate, and I think everything is pans out the way it's supposed to be. And something put me in that gym. I remember it was that kind of a gym where all the really good hardcore guys went. And when I remember when we told our friends at the European Health Spa, we're going to go to the Y, they're like, "You're going to the Y? You think you're ready for that?" And that's where all the hardcore guys were that you could really learn how to do this. And from there on, then, I remember the first time I was going to help him run backstage. And in a meeting prior to that, the main message from him was you have to take care of the athletes. Without them, we don't have anything. They are everything.
Mhm.
And it just grew from there. And competed for a while until genetics got in the way. And then it was into judging and promoting events, little local events. And one thing led to another, and it just kept growing. Next thing you know, running some bigger regional events, and then on to the Masters Nationals, as I remember. Yeah, 1992, 1993 Masters Nationals. And we had 110 athletes that year. I was literally giving tickets away out in the street to try to fill the seats. Um, and it just took off from there. It became a passion because that whole that these things are the success of these things is driven by details. And if there's one thing I had going for me, it was details, detail oriented. So good to go. And then I've just beyond that. Then I've just had the benefit of being around the right people, and the right people allowing me to do that. Jim Manion taught me everything about promoting. And then a gentleman named Steve Carroll was a guy that used to run our national championships for the longest time. Um, and as a promoter, arguably one of the best because he'd already promoted every sport and event and activity that you can imagine. Um, Martial arts, um, powerlifting, strongman, boxing, you name it. One day, you talk about being in the right place. the Nationals were in NPC Nationals were in Orlando, and I stayed an extra day. So I'm hanging at the pool, relaxing, and he was across the way, Steve Carroll. Always kept to himself. All I did was stroll over and, hey, Steve, congratulations. What a great event. Man, so cool to see how you put this together. And he said, have a seat, young man. And for the next 2 hours, gave me Promoter 101. Because I told him I was starting to run some regional events in the area here in Pittsburgh. And he took that time out of his day to give me the specifics on how to be a successful promoter. He didn't have to do that. My ears were open, you got to believe. And then after that, it just kept going. I mean, I got to be around folks like Steve Weinberger, one of the best promoters in the world. John Lindsay out in the West Coast. Robin Chang, who arguably might be the GOAT when it comes to promoting. And I got to be around him and work with him and work under him as he promoted the Olympia all those years. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I would learn from Robin Chang, if there was something, was that no matter what happens, you'd be cool. Because if something, we can plan everything, every little detail into an event so it's spectacular and perfect. Something's bound to go sideways. The question then is, what do you do about it and how do you react? And I learned that from Robin, because no matter what, he's running the Olympia. There's a lot of moving parts to that. And if something went slightly sideways, everybody obviously would look to him for how to react. And he was just chilled, and he'd go about fixing whatever it was, not berating anyone because something went sideways. Just fix it, and then let's make sure it doesn't happen again. So that might be the huge benefit I've had, is being around the right people and learning from them. You can't buy that kind of an education.
Do you think that that almost comes from like a sense of confidence and knowing, like really feeling like and you've laid out these plans and what plan B is going to be and that kind of thing, that's where that kind of coolness comes from?
So here we are right now. We're just into February, and the season gets started with the Arnold first of March. But beyond that, I've got a couple monster events. The Masters Nationals, Teen Collegiate Masters, is July, and there will be 1,200 athletes. And then in North America, probably have 1,500, and maybe more because we have the World Championships now. And people will contact me for something, and they go, look, I know you're busy. I go, well, actually, I'm not. I was busy in November, December, January, February, doing stuff that I could predict, paperwork, schedules, programs, all the stuff that is going to happen, ordering awards, stage, backdrop, all the stuff, the details are done now. And then there's a comfort zone, and I can sleep at night. I learned a lesson. Those things need to be done early, and every detail, that little dumb detail that I miss, is the one that's going to make me look like an idiot. And I can't have that, because then I'm getting a phone call, and all it says is Jim. And you look at the phone, and his name is on the phone, and I think, what have I done over the course of the last 3 days? All right, let's get this phone call and see what's up. Because, whatever I do is a direct reflection on him. Right. He leads the way. He's the reason this all happens, to be honest with you, truthfully. And I've had the benefit of being here in Pittsburgh all that time. What an education. Great.
And because you are, somebody who understands the importance of getting it done ahead of time, does that leave that time period in between, does it ever feel almost like, sometimes whenever I have something done, like, just going back to school, like you get your paper done early. Well, sometimes I would almost feel like, what do I like? I would almost feel a little bit nervous that I did, like I have to do something else, or like I might have missed something. Do you ever have those feelings during like the period of time between like getting it done and the actual show happening?
Well, there's no question that, I'm a list guy. I have lists, and there's nothing better than scratching something off the list. So, and I go through the lists, guaranteed, relentlessly. Someone said, how do you do this? And I go, well, a little OCD goes a long way. And I'm a victim of that. There's no doubt about it. So I'm a detail guy, and I love the details. And then we never sit on our laurels. So if I get stuff done, then as the show gets closer, there's so many cool stuff that I can do to amplify the event, or amplify the competitor experience more than anything. And it happens all the time. I mean, not to mention I've got the best team in the world. I can easily brag on them. I mean, they're so good that they run the backstage at the Olympia and on stage. Now we put this team together over time. Me and my great friend Rick Bayardi, who runs that, and it's the expediters. Now the most important people in any event are the MC and the folks backstage, the expediters. They're the two most important components. So having these incredible expediters who somehow run an event with 1,500 athletes, people who are on diets, and after the fact, the texts start to roll in and the emails. You've got the best team anywhere. I'm telling all my friends. And they must do that because the numbers continue to grow because of them, certainly not because of my smiling face. I mean, our customer service is preeminent. The people, I happened to be sitting outside in September in North America, and sitting out by the ticket booth with a friend of mine. And people were just coming up and their accolades. Man, wow, what a great show! Thank you so much. And my friend said, "So, what is it that you do? What do you guys do that creates this?" He goes, "A lot of those people didn't have a trophy, but somehow they're happy as hell." So we literally don't do anything special. All we do is what you're supposed to do, which is take care of them. Customer service. This is a customer service industry. I mean, when you take a good look, and it's not lost on us, what they put into preparing for one of these things, the time, the time is unbelievable. The hours, the eating, and then trying to fit it into their lives. People ask me all the time. We got some pretty cool seminars coming up here pretty soon, and people will say, "When do you think I should compete?" And the answer is, when does it fit into your life? Or maybe more importantly, when does it fit into your significant other's life? Because if it doesn't fit into their life, you may have a problem. So all these things get tied together. It's important. That's why our team knows, and we don't need reminders. Say, listen to me. These people made a choice to be here at this event, and they've come a long way. So big day for them. Let's make sure we keep it that way and keep it comfortable. So that's what really drives us. I got to tell you. And I, not to belabor this point, but these folks are some of my favorite people on earth. Is our expediting team. They're the most diverse group of people you can imagine. There's people there. They're regular blue collar folks like myself. There are people on that team that are multimillionaires, and they all come together for that week of the show, and they have one goal: put on the perfect bodybuilding event. which I got to be honest with you, Dan, is not difficult in my mind. I mean, and we remind, I know they get tired of hearing it, but my phrase is, it's just bodybuilding. I mean, it's not rocket science. So with a little bit of effort and attention to detail, we can put on the perfect event and send them home happy. And they can't wait to come back. So cool.
Putting on like a great event, being the promoter, being even like being a part of the team, you can find like pride in that. But I think what happens sometimes is that people, and not necessarily just in bodybuilding, but people get so proud of what they do or like what they're doing, even for somebody else, that it no longer is about that other person they're doing it for, and it becomes about them. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is you're doing this great thing for someone, but then your head gets so big that you forget to make it really for that other person.
There can be a number of things that happen. One of them, for instance, is the fact that we never sit back on our laurels. So the contest, to give you an example, the contest is the Labor Day weekend, the week leading up to it, a 4 or 5 day event, monster event, great turnout. Folks are happy, lots of accolades, great. So on Tuesday, we're in Jim Manion's office and we're tearing the event apart and trying to assess how we can make it better. Because we're not sitting back and thinking, okay, that's cool, let's repeat that. No, hell no. What we're looking to do is improve. So that's what's exciting, and that's what drives our success. Because here's what other folks do, and we've seen it. Many years ago, a guy approached my friend Rick Bayardi. He was running one of our states for us as a chairman, and a nice young man approached him and said, "I want to get into bodybuilding promotion." So Ricky, okay, cool. Seemed to be a passionate guy. Took him under his wing, taught him how, and this guy bought into it and did great, and put on this fantastic event, especially as a first-time event, because he covered every detail and he had that passion, right? And the show went great. Feedback was great. And then he never did it again. Because in his mind, I've built it, they will come. So,
Gotcha.
okay, I did a great job last year. I don't have to kill myself again. It's already, my reputation is what it is. So the contest promotion didn't happen the same. And the excitement wasn't there, and all the promotions, and you got to get the word out, and you got to visit these gyms, and you got seminars to promote the event. And that's what happens so many times, is people, they don't kick up the energy the second time. And for instance, I've got the North America, or I got the Masters Nationals coming up in July, and the first one was 1993. So this one at my account will be 30 years, and it's going to be cooler than ever because it's what we do, man. It's that's where the fun comes in. So I think it's really got to be a passion for someone. You can't go at this, halfway. You got to get after it, but you got to have a passion. So that I saw on the thing today. The guy said, if you're doing something you love, it's not work.
Yeah. And I feel like that ongoing push to make something better, and you mentioned passion, and I feel like creativity, understanding, and taking time for the small details, having a little bit of a spirit of like a salesman a little bit too, knowing how, like a marketer, knowing how to push something, knowing, all these things, they come into play into like one, um, they come into play in like almost one big role as the promoter. It takes, I feel like, so much.
It's like we talked before. These people have put so much into this. Many times they've been preparing for 2 years for this event. Because truly, many times, I've always been a big picture guy, And there was a time when I used to train some competitors, and I don't do that anymore. But I still help people with posing and presentation. And we had a series of videotapes years ago called Perfect Posing, and it was great because we had two quality athletes and used it to show people how to present themselves. However, the point is that putting these kind of things together and knowing what you're doing for this person and basically repaying them for what they're doing to get ready for the event, man, there's nothing like it. Like you mentioned, creativity. Dream up something else. Let's do something else out in the lobby. So people show up, they're blown away. Now, we didn't have to do that. But it's a matter of rewarding them for what they've done. And as simple as that, it's so cool. It's a passion, and I learned that from the top guys. They told me, they kept harping on me. You can't sit back on your laurels. You've got to keep pushing it.
And so how does bodybuilding, I feel like this is something that I struggle with a little bit at the beginning, especially. How does it become like more uniformly recognizable, but also still like maintain that, like we're talking about, that creativity, the modernness, continuing to like go with the times? How does it really do both, I guess?
Well, that comes from the top, and you bring up a good point because back way back when we were men's bodybuilding. That's it. And then we added on women's bodybuilding. And then fitness came in. And then when the fitness division got to a point where many times the athletes were getting a little older. They weren't, you get up in your late 20s and you've been torturing your body for years as a gymnast or whatever. And these girls still wanted to compete. And Jim devised the idea of the figure division. And people were like, what? They're going to be in a one piece and a two-piece suit and do quarter turns. No poses, no quarter turns. But the writers called it the no talent division. And to this day, the higher ups above Jim, other folks on his level, claimed it would never work. That will never work. And to this day, when we're at the USA, we're out at Tamers USA, and 25 girls walk on stage in one class, and we'll go, "Hey Jim, you know what? That figure division is never going to work, my man." Point being, though, he knew, and this is where the whole key to this whole thing comes together. Not long after that, there were some people around the country doing swimsuit divisions, Hawaiian Tropic. And right away, some people were like, "Wow, we got to do that." And he's like, "Well, let's sit back. Let's see where it goes. Let's figure out how they do it, and then see how we can do it better." And then bikini became a part of our thing. And now you got a whole nother body type involved. So slowly but surely over the years, he added different competitive divisions to cover every body type. And that's what has made the thing explode instead of languishing. Um, you know, back in the day when I was competing in the early days, there was no music for one thing. So if you were going to compete at the finals, you better bring a lot of friends or it was crickets. And you stood on a little box and there was a light hanging off the basketball hoop. So this is where we were at. Turn the clock ahead now, and we've got a different competitive division for every body type. Now it's become a sport for every man and every woman. And that's what's made it take off instead of languishing back in the gymnasiums.
Right.
We used to be the event that took place after powerlifting. way back in the day. They had a powerlifting event first. Sometimes the bodybuilders would walk on at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night after powerlifting was over. But you got to have the right direction and the right leadership to come up with these ideas, to develop this stuff and not do it quickly. Sometimes you got to take your time with this stuff.
And is bodybuilding by its nature a participant-based sport, like for the most part, or do you think that there's a future where it's becoming more of a fan-based sport, where right now I feel like the participants are the ones who are, it's those people are feeding into the sport and the sport giving to them. And then you look at other sports where it's like like baseball per se, where there's the small percentage of people competing and then they have more people, I guess, that are watching.
No, you make a good point. Baseball is hell, it was America's pastime for a long time. So people who never picked up a baseball or a bat were still interested. And now the argument is probably that the NFL has taken over that mantle, and that's probably America's sport. In bodybuilding, it's more of a niche sport activity. Some would even question whether it should be called a sport. Maybe it's an entertainment events. And a lot more people who are interested are people in the industry. Not so much where, like you mentioned, baseball, people all over the country, all over the world are into it. In ours, chances are people who are interested in it have some kind of a hookup to it, a friend, a family member. Although there's a whole list of reasons people do it, and it's not always for the trophy. We've had people come up and get in the event, and I remember the one fantastic lady, and she wasn't going to win that day, but when talking to her, so many times there's a story involved, and in her case, bad health ran rampant through her family, and everybody had high cholesterol, high blood pressure, all kinds of horrific things, diabetes. She wanted to show her family that changes could be made, and they didn't have to live that life, and she could break the chain. So at that point, she dropped 100 pounds. Was she ready to win the contest that day? No, but it was a magnificent accomplishment for her to do that. And it showed her family what was possible. It was her reason to do it. So here's someone who was not involved in bodybuilding, but it was kind of a bucket list thing. Plus, she wanted to do it for the benefit of her family. So there, in that case, you've taken someone who's not involved in the sport, and they've gotten involved for their own reasons. There are people who do it because they need it as something to keep them going from day to day. They've discovered that they love the challenge. Many people, they really truly don't care if they win or lose. Even as, and maybe more so as the ages increase. Like, for instance, I do that teen collegiate and masters nationals, and we'll have 1,000 people over 35 in that thing, and the vibe is different at that event. Sure, they want to win, they want to do well, but they've also been there socializing, making friends, and they start to look for each other every year. So it's not always just training till you hit the wall, and they're learning how to do it in a safer manner, in a much healthier manner, also, to where geez, we overtrained and underate so much back in the day. I remember it well. But knowledge is the key. So now, the the whole system is way different, where people are training smarter, their bodies are holding up longer. I had 12 guys in the over 70 division last year, and they represented themselves very well, and they're in great shape, and joints and tendons and ligaments are holding up, and they're just living the lifestyle. So yeah, I think that having all these different competitive divisions has really helped, because it's so much more for the every person. You don't have to look like Ronnie Coleman, or Phil Heath to get in these things. We've now developed it so that there's a whole lot more of an everyman look to these things, like people in men's physique and bikini, and frankly, we can market it to those people.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.
Bodybuilding, just over the last few years, with it becoming more popular, I think social media has a lot to do with that. But I think what it also has a lot to do with that is almost like a rebellion a little bit.
We've seen this to where in the gyms, when there are competitors in the gyms, people gravitate to them. They see what they're doing, they see them working hard, and people gravitate to them because they like the look, they like what they're doing. It's a healthy thing, and there's then questions and answers, because, like you mentioned, with COVID and every other thing that's going around and has been, everyone's now really turning to health, and they want to make sure. In so many cases, even the cost of health care has gone up. So people are even more interested in staying healthy. And sometimes they're joining a gym, or they're ordering up an insanity video, any number of things to stay in shape, because that health concern is so incredibly important now. And it drives people to get in shape and be in shape. And sometimes they think, you know what, maybe I'd like to show this off and go to one of these events and compete in one of these events. Especially if they find out that the athletes are all about them. Everyone's been in their shoes at one time or another. And it's pretty cool because we all remember it. And that's kind of what drives our customer service, because now, way back when, we didn't have people, there were no trainers to tell us what to do. There were other people who were doing it, and we would try to ask questions. But there were no trainers and coaches like there are now. So now it's so much easier to get someone, and you can talk to folks and have a consultation, and literally interview somebody to help you along the way, so that you do it in a smarter, healthier fashion. It's probably one of the biggest messages we keep pushing across, is that we're going to do a seminar in Ashburn, Virginia, here on February 11th and 12th. And as I always do, there will be a point there where I say, I oversee what's called the Mid Atlantic Zone. And one of my jobs in that is to promote the sport. However, you must understand that this needs to be a healthy, happy atmosphere when you're getting ready. Cool thing to accomplish, but health is first, and you've got to be happy doing it. If you find yourself being miserable because you're either overtraining or under eating or something like that, it's time to step back and reassess, because in our case, someone's preparing for an event in June and their body's not responding the way they thought it would. It's not time to push harder. It's It's time to back up and reassess and maybe do one in August. So this is kind of what drives us all the time is this should be a healthy, happy thing to do. Hell, you're getting ready for something that you're going to be in the best shape of your life and look incredible. And people want to look like that. So that's a large part of this thing.
And is there a way that you see where, because when it comes down to it, like some athletes are going to do whatever it takes, whether that's, like you said, training too much or under eating or whatever it takes, really. Like some people are just all in on trying to win and at whatever cost to them. But is there a way to where, we can, as the sport of bodybuilding, deter that from happening? I mean, obviously education is important, but how do you keep it, I guess, as safe for the people who are sometimes a little bit maybe pushing the limits too much?
For us, it's been the seminars. They're personal. We hold them throughout the year. People attend them who are either what's called a true novice, someone who's never competed. Some people who want to learn about getting in shape but have no desire to compete. A lot of times people come to us, I want to look like you. I'm not interested in getting on stage. That's not my thing, but I want to be healthy and look like you guys. So then that spurs them to get involved. But the seminars are kind of our conduit to getting the information to these people about how it should be done. The old, you remember the old phrase, no pain, no gain. Hell with that. We used to think that heavy weights made bigger muscles. So we pushed the envelope. And now when guys my age get together, the conversation quickly winds around to banged up shoulders, elbows, knees, whatever it might be, because the things we did back then were so stupid, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. So the seminars, truthfully, excuse me, are the way that we get the information out now, because where it's like, hey, you must be careful with your joints. If the weight's too heavy, you're going to snap a joint. Now you can't work out. You got to be smart. Do it lighter. I talked to to a couple guys in the gym the other day, young guys, 19, 20, nice young joints, healthy joints, haven't been abused yet by too many squats, heavy squats or something. And they were just pushing it. And I get it. But I said, guys, there's another way to do this. Instead of trying to lift heavier weights for that, how about if you lift in a more concentrated fashion? Train smart, train the muscles, don't strain the tendons and ligaments and joints. And then let's eat correctly, because that's what's going to build the muscle. You want great abs. Great abs come from the kitchen, not from the gym. So, I said to them, and they rolled their eyes. I get it. I was in their shoes many years ago. But I said, there's an orthopedic surgeon in your future, because at this rate, something's going to break. So a large part of these seminars we do are certainly they're a promotion of our sport, but it's also largely an education to training, eating, nutrition, all the different ways to do it, and how to do it smart. Because we want these people to get involved, and we don't want them tearing up knees or elbows or tendons or anything like that. We don't want them to be dehydrated. We're constantly pounding, look, you've got to drink more water. There's a way to do this. Back in the day, the trick was quit drinking water a number of days out from the event. Then obviously it leads to dehydration and you're unhealthy and you feel like hell. And not only that, but you look like hell. There's a better way. So the seminars go a long way towards instructing people on the correct, healthy way to do this stuff. And I know they're always surprised to hear it. I think they expect us because we got fantastic people involved in these seminars. There's some pros and people who have really gone to the top level. And I think people come there expecting to hear some hardcore plans on training. And they come to find out that, well, wait a minute, it's a very balanced diet. Um, and balance is what makes this happen. And we emphasize like crazy the importance of that word balance. You've got to have balance in your training, balance in your eating, your nutrition. Um, get on the correct supplements from the health food stores, because there's bound to be certain to be things that you're not getting. So get blood work done. Find out what you're deficient in. The seminars are what's doing it for us to get the word out there on how to do it.
Yeah. And, you mentioned like that educational piece is so critical. And I think it's amazing that we're really learning more from a scientific perspective, how the body, and not just in general, but like how we can learn that based on your genes or based on whatever, that this food is best for you or this training style is best for you. How can, as an athlete, how does that athlete, do you feel, how is the future athlete, I guess, going to continue? Because along with that new research is going to come new cost, right? Because becoming more personalized and things like that. So how does the athlete in 10 years and 20 years continue, I guess, to be able to optimize what they want to optimize? Because if one person's paying, let's just say $500 for this new technology or this new information that they can benefit from, that's going to force pretty much everybody on stage to do the same thing. And I'm not saying 500 is a number, but just that price, that cost to continue to compete, I feel like is going to increase as more information does become available via, scientific research.
You just hit the nail on the head, though. Here's the situation. As we go on, we keep learning. Things that we did back in 85, certainly people are not doing now. Back then, we did every body part 3 times a week, as hard as we possibly could. You didn't dare let up. Now, most people do everything once a week because they've learned. So the internet, while it can, of course, there's a good and bad side to everything, and the internet's one of those things. However, you don't necessarily have to pay 500 to get that information. We are constantly looking and saying, whatever's going on right now, can you imagine what's going to be going on 10 years from now when they learn more about this? Hell, back in the day, we were told you couldn't have more than 25% of your diet being protein. They thought that our liver and kidneys could not accept that or deal with that. So that was the government experts telling us that, and we went with it. Well, it was difficult to build muscle. You weren't getting repaired. You'd overtrain so hard, and the muscles weren't getting repaired, rebuilt, or built more. But we've learned over time. Someone came, many times people would learn something and someone would find that out by research, whatever. And then everyone, yeah, wow, it's a good point. That works. The idea of water leading into an event, everyone cut their water to drastic levels. Now, it didn't take $500 to find out that we shouldn't do that. Sometimes it was trial and error. I tell people, the foundation of our sport is folks who are the true novice. These are people who are brand new, never did it before, trying to find their way. And I tell them, maybe we're at the seminars and I'll say, how many folks are true novice and their hands just fly up? And I said, what you're doing right now is the hardest thing you will ever do in your life. I guarantee it. And here's why. I said, you have an idea that maybe you'd like to compete June 1st. And now you've got to discover what affects your body to hold muscle mass, stay toned, and lose body fat to the degree that you'd like to. Find out how to do that in a healthy manner, not getting dehydrated, not overtraining, keeping balance in your life. So you're still attending school, still doing well at work, still participating in your family events. I said, and finding that balance of what will affect your body, Dan, as opposed to your friend Bill. It might be two completely different things that affect those bodies, but you've got to try that out. Ideally, get a coach to help you with that. Or there's some great information on the internet. And sometimes it's a matter of getting a few opinions. Sometimes it's trial and error. A coach might want to train you, Dan, and he knows what has worked in the past with a lot of people. What he doesn't know is your body. So he's got to figure that out. And they'll do it generally in a way that's healthy. Hey, let's try let's try 200 carbs a day. Let's try 125 grams of protein a day and 50 fats a day. And let's see what happens with your body. Because you don't know, it might have done great things for you, but it doesn't work for me.
Right.
So that's the whole key to this is learning that. And as we learn more, the information becomes even more available. You take away those costs. So it does not keep escalating in costs. It's a matter of research and smart trial and error in many cases, with a little bit of direction from a coach. You know, when I was training, just to give you an example, when I was training folks, even folks who were not competitors, just John Q. Public, and they'd come to me for help. My goal, and they initially didn't understand this, my goal was to teach them how to do it and send them on their way. Sure, I had some people 4 days a week for 20 years. They wanted that direction. They liked the fact that they didn't have to think about it. They knew if they showed up in the gym, I was prepared to give them a slamming workout, and they didn't have to think about how much weight to use. Someone would say, how much do you do on a dumbbell press? And then one lady goes, I have absolutely no idea. He hands them to me and I do them. And when my form starts to fail, he takes them. Some people need that. Other people, I'd see them once every 3 months, literally once every 3 months, just to bring them back into the fray, fine tune them, make sure they're doing what they should and can do. So it's amazing what different people need or not. So yeah, this thing it's only going to get so much better.
Right. No, I think what the human body is capable of, just throwing out like any research, like what we can, like you're talking about, like doing your own self experimentation and learning through that and optimizing through that. It's amazing that we can, like, there's people out there who can train and can run, 4-minute mile. There's people out there who can train and they can lift 1,000 pounds. There's people who can train and they can, get up on stage and have the best physique in the world. And all those are the same, the same species. It's a human being, and we're capable. And I think what we've lost in a lot of ways is like the desire to utilize our bodies and to see what we are capable of.
Sometimes, genetics plays a large part in all of this.
Definitely.
Not everybody can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. And sometimes you've got to be open to trying different things to find out where you belong. As I was progressing through bodybuilding, genetics play a part the further you get into it. And as I went up through the regional ranks, did well, and then up to the state level, did well. I also was enough of a realist to realize that there wasn't enough training or enough stakes in the world to make me look good enough to be on the national stage, because pretty soon there are more and more great body parts on someone. You and I, most of us have one body part that excels quickly and does well, no matter what. Some people have two. The folks on the upper level, genetics has blessed them with a body that has almost every great body part. If you don't have a certain body part, I mean, your body has been predetermined as to where you can get with things. Beyond that, you're predisposed to do something else. So, the main point is that you have to find your path and find where you belong and where you can excel, and be a realist about this. Boy, I'd love to be involved in a sport where I'm excelling at the tip top level.
Yeah.
Wasn't meant to be. My father was 6'5" and I'm not. And so genetics got in the way there. I can't begin to imagine with my drive what kind of a life I could have had if I was 6'5". But it wasn't meant to be, so you move on. And I think instead I've found another passion, and probably customer service being what that is.
And I think that's a hard pill to swallow, for anybody, whether it's, oh, I'm not good enough to get drafted into the, the MLB or the NBA, or whether that's I'm not going to be on the Olympia stage or whatever it is, because in any physical endeavor, there's a limitation. There's some type of group who is good enough. There's some type of group who is not.
It's a horrible pill for some folks to swallow. If you're not a realist at heart, it can be a situation, because you keep thinking, well, I'll just keep trying it. I'll get better. It'll come around for me. They'll see that I'm the best. And it's so important to have balance and to be real with yourself. Difficult for some folks. A person like myself, I'm not sure how you are. I would suspect you're the same, where you recognize your capabilities and where the ceiling is on certain things. And then you deal with it and be real with it. People who decide to push and push and push sometimes can be a real waste of time. And it's difficult. I've seen it often. And it's a situation for folks. People ask when they come in and they're preparing for an event, and they go, "How do you think I'll do?" So, well, are you the best you've ever been? And they go, "Yeah, I am. I've never been in this kind of shape in my life." I go, "Then you've won." Because you can't tell who's going to show up on that stage next to you. Might be someone incredible. Either way, the fact of the matter is, somehow you found a way to be at your very best right now. And what the hell kind of an accomplishment is that? Who can say that?
Not many people.
Well, it's a matter of being real with yourself. And it's like that. I want to be the best I've ever been, because then I've already won the battle. I may not win the war on stage, but I am seriously the best I've ever been. Because the other side of that is not so good. You walk on stage and you're not your best. I wish I had 3 more weeks. I wish I hadn't eaten all that sugar that I had. Shouldn't have had that. I wish I drank more water so that my muscles would be fuller. Any number of things. So that's the other side of the coin with that, is being real with how you've prepared.
It's tough because you could, what you just said, like I never thought about it like that, but you could either be like the best version of you, you're never been better and you don't get the placement that you want, or you could flip it around and say, you know what, have awesome genetics. I didn't stick to my plan 100%. I don't feel great about that, but hey, I went out and won. So like which one really at the end of the day is better? And I think it just, it goes back to you have to figure out why you're doing it. You have to figure out the reason, because there's so many different reasons for doing, being involved in bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding is such a wild thing because of genetics. People come in and I help them with their presentation. It's incredibly important. You got to present it correctly to the judges. The frustrating thing for judges is when some great body shows up and they don't know how to present it. They can't get chosen because they can only pick what they show. At any rate, so I never get involved in someone's preparation. But if they come in to see me for presentation, and it's just like, who looks like this in your family? And they'll go, wow. Some will say, my dad. He looks exactly like this, and he never lifted weights. Or it might be an uncle or a grandfather. It's amazing how far generations it might go. Probably somebody looked like that, or they might say, no one. I'm it. Which in that case, maybe someone had the genes but did not try working out. I have an extremely close friend, oh my goodness, who suffered from OCD, true OCD, and it took on many forms in her life. At one point in time, her weight was down to like 88 pounds and not going well. And the doctor said, I wouldn't typically do this, but maybe you should try a little bit of light exercise. Maybe it will spur your appetite. So she did. And a few years later, she became a champion bodybuilder with lots of muscle, great shape, great genetics. Who would guess that was hidden in that body, except that she tried working out. And what's funny about these bodybuilders is if they are in fact blessed with these genetics, they can be built by mistake. We see it all the time. Someone has no idea what the hell they're doing. They work out and they eat and things happen. And if I do that, things don't happen. I just shake my head. I'm like, yeah. Sometimes I'll say, listen, you should go home and kiss your mom and hug your father. Thank them for those damn genetics.
Right. It's funny. You hear people, especially like women who, in the gym, they'll hear other women say, oh, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get too big and too manly. And I'm just like, oh, I wish that was my problem. I wish I could worry about getting too big on accident.
My best friend is my best friend since high school, so I've known him forever. And to this very day, I know why he looks like he does. I mean, not that he didn't work out hard or anything, but his parents were genetic goddamn freaks. They were unbelievable. His mother and his father, because I knew them well. And how even way back when, people were accused of him of taking PEDs way back before they were popular. And because some supplements would kind of give you a wider jaw. It would have some effects on you in every way. And he had that. And I remember people say, we know that he's taken those supplements. And I go, no, here's a picture of his sister. Looks exactly the same. And by the way, here's his father. So to this day, when we're somewhere eating lunch and I'm sitting there eating egg whites and asparagus, and he's pounding down 2 desserts, and he's hard as a rock, and I'm not. Genetics.
Yeah. Some people just have that. And for the people that don't, it's still a journey worth taking, because like you said, I think it's a great way to say it. You said something like, you had no idea what's within you. You had no idea. And maybe it is bodybuilding, or maybe it's something completely different in another realm. And, you have a knack for building a business, or you have a knack for education, or whatever it is. Like, figure it out, because I think everybody truly does have something within them that they're supposed to be doing. And if you're stuck on this one thing that you think you should be doing, then you're never going to find it.
For us and for me, the key watchword is balance. You've got to have balance in your life, in your training, in your eating. Your body exists and runs great on balance. Someone's eating some kind of a dietary regimen and it's off the charts one way or another. Your body runs on balance, does well. It's healthy for it. So it goes to your life too. You got to keep your life balanced. If you're obsessing about it and suddenly your whole life is consumed by getting ready for this event, that's a bad outcome.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
You mentioned like seeing some of these athletes and a few things like, not being able to present well and things like that. But what do you think are some of the things that young athletes in particular, maybe even you could cross the line into athletes who want to take that next step, that next level, whether that's, pro level or whatever. What are some things that they could focus on, and just generally speaking on doing better, just on show day in particular?
Well, it's a matter of, in that case, and especially in the early stages, that's when a coach comes into play, really more than anything. Because sometimes all of us have made a mistake of thinking, well, I look pretty good, but man, if I could look 5% better, and maybe what I need to do is quit drinking water on Friday, so Saturday morning I really look fantastic because the water will come out from under my skin and I'll look hard as a rock. And they're not aware, or they don't realize that the water instead comes out of their organs and they may get dehydrated, or it comes out of their muscles, which are made of water. And you walk on stage and you see the pictures and it looks like you didn't work out. So those kind of mistakes can be made. That's why, and I know I've harped on it, but that's why these seminars can be so helpful to these people, and or a great coach, someone who's, and you find a great coach the same way that you find almost anything you get in your life. You probably ask a friend for a referral. Like, hey, I know that guy came over and fixed your plumbing. How was he? Was he any good? Yep, great. Same way with a trainer. You want to go, you want to meet with a person, have a consultation, and interview them basically to see what their mindset is. But even more to the point, I'm going to a friend and saying, here's my situation. I want to drop some weight. I want to maintain this muscle. I want to do it in a healthy manner. Who do you know? Or who's too extreme? And your friend or a number of friends will give you an idea who that is. Incredibly important to make that happen. And once you do that, then that can save you from having a poor showing at an event or not, because the details become so incredible. By the time the show day comes, your body is honed into an incredible machine. You're eating, your body's taking the calories in, they're burning them up. Done correctly, there's calories going to keep your muscles full while you're losing body fat. All these things and what you mentioned before is even more to the point. It's become a science, because What works on you might not work on me. The science of our physiques is completely different. And somebody, either an athlete, who I tell them all the time, it's all in the numbers. Track what you are doing. How much cardio are you doing? How many carbs are you taking in? How much protein? How many fats? What kind of carbs? How much sugar? And then track it, and then have someone take photos of you. Let's see what the hell you look like when you're on that regimen. And if it's going well, stay on it. Let's not overthink it, which so many people do. So the key is by the numbers. A person can do it, even a true novice, and take a look at the pictures, see what you look like, and make sure that you're on track. And if it's not happening quick enough, you tweak the numbers a little bit in a controlled fashion. So it's probably, Dan, the biggest mistake people make is that last week before the show. Sometimes they think I can be 10% better if I make some changes. Meanwhile, your body has been running like a fine-tuned machine on whatever the hell you were doing, and you look great. And by trying to get 10% better, you get 20% worse, and it all goes straight to hell. We see it all the time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. From a coach's perspective, from being around a lot of shows over time, what would some advice be for coaches to handle that show day and be I guess almost like a better leader during that day for their athletes?
You want to be a positive influence for sure. So they're being positive about things. They're not being radical about the things they do. You've developed a plan, and now you're into the last week, and now you're into the last couple of days, and you want to be there and supportive. But certainly not a matter of changing anything drastically all at one time. We see that sometimes where someone decides that, well, because what they call it is peak week, and for me, peak week are my two least favorite words, because here you are, you've been on a regimen for 12 or 16 weeks, and you've been honing it, or someone's been honing it for you. And the ideal scenario, in my humble opinion, is that you get ready and be in fantastic contest shape 1 week early. You are ready and wishing the show was the next day. And then you very simply continue to eat the same thing. And you get weighed every day. You take pictures every day so you can pick up on, sometimes in that kind of condition, your metabolism can jump. The next thing you know, you're burning calories like there's no tomorrow. And if you're monitoring this, you simply add some more calories in. Or maybe you're not doing any cardio at all. I had a girl I was training, and she was done correctly. She was so far ahead of the game. And I go, look, you got to stop doing cardio. We're 5 weeks out. Well, that's every athlete's dream. However, she goes, no cardio. Are you out of your mind? I go, look, you don't need it. We'll pick it back up if it's necessary, but it's only a tool. It's a tool to use. So much of what takes place, and I'm glad you brought that up earlier, is what happens in the off season. And I tell people, look, if they're getting ready, I go, are you liking this experience? Yeah. And even after the fact, I say, did you like that? Was it cool for you? Yes. I'll do it again. I go, great. Here's the key. From now on, it's called improvement season, not the off season. Off season can turn into fat season, and people start to gorge themselves and put on excess weight. Meanwhile, the key is continue to eat correctly, maybe do a little bit of light cardio, train and eat smart, and you want to put on a little bit of weight. Certainly, you can't be in contest condition year round. It's actually unhealthy. You need that extra body fat. But for every category, we recommend certain amounts of weight that they can put on, because, for instance, if someone puts on 10 pounds it probably goes on their entire body in a film from top to bottom. And then that can then be taken off. And then in this improvement season, you can see improvements being made. If you put on 30 pounds, now it's covered up with all this excess body weight, and you can't see that. And by the way, that 30 pounds has to come back off for the next event, whenever that may be. So the key to everything, honestly, is improvement season. We started to see this about 15 years ago. Frankly, when I competed, we'd put on anywhere from 35 to 50 pounds in the off season because we thought we should, so that we could train heavier and put more muscle on. But that excess weight had to come off. It might have been the stupidest thing we ever did, but it's what we thought we were supposed to do. Now, a few years ago, Mr. Manion brings in some of the top athletes in the world to do a guest appearance at his event. And about 10 to 15 years ago, guys start showing up in great shape in May, which they weren't going to compete till September or October. And I remember asking a couple of guys, I'm amazed that you're in this shape now, whereas typically you'd be a lot more fluffy. And the guy said, we've learned if we keep our body in better condition and it runs more efficiently, we can build more muscle. So putting all the excess weight was a huge mistake. So I tell all these people, look, after the event, some of the girls' classes, maybe if a girl weighed 118, I said, look, you gotta get together with your trainer, coach, and set a ceiling. So maybe, okay, you competed at 118, maybe you go up to 128 and no more, because that way you're always improving and your body's running efficiently. It's a home run. So the improvement season, by and large, can dictate what happens for contest season.
It's always been interesting to me about, really that peak week. A lot of people talking about how they're making really like altering changes every single day. And to me, it's almost like you're playing Jenga, hoping that the whole thing doesn't crash before, show day.
Couldn't be more right. I mean, there are so many times that if you're going to make some changes at all, I tell people, look, if you're determined to drop that water, practice it 2 or 3 weeks out so that you're going to take in carbs and drop your water Friday night. Try it. Get up Saturday morning and take a look and see what you look like. You're going to know right away if it's a good idea or a bad idea. I said, tricks are for kids. It's a bad idea, man. Get yourself ready a week early, eat your way to the show, and then listen to your body. You should know exactly what the hell you're going to look like Saturday morning when you get up. It shouldn't be like you get up and you're afraid to look in the mirror, because I hope what we did yesterday worked.
Right.
Hell with that. You've worked too hard. You've worked too hard. Whatever you did Friday, you should know, because you practiced this, you know exactly what you're going to look like Saturday morning. That drive me crazy. And I admit, we all made those mistakes, not practicing things, cutting water, loading water, sodium. And you wake up Saturday morning and I'm telling you, it doesn't even look like you. And how upsetting that can be.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think the Masters division will play a role in the sport of bodybuilding in the next, 10 or 15 years? Because, you're seeing right now, I feel like there's so many athletes kind of on that borderline of like still competing and then maybe moving to Masters, maybe not. And then you're having this kind of new era of bodybuilding. And then in, 10 or 15 years, they're going to be kind of on that same border. So, how does the Masters division really play a role?
It's the coolest division we have, because there's people turning 35 every single day. Now, there was a time when the Masters division really didn't get that much attention, but a number of us promoters really started to push it, because guys and girls were staying in shape longer. So we started to provide the divisions for them to compete in. Instead of just over 35 or 40 or 50, I added 60. And now we've got some over 70s. If you don't have the division, they can't compete in it. I'll give you an example. The bikini division, when they developed that division completely, I was already running a Masters Nationals. And one of our officials said to me, because they know I like to push the envelope with ages, they said, listen to me, we're going to do over 35 bikini. Don't be getting any ideas about doing 40 and 45 and 50. I know you. Well, so I said, okay, fine. However, Dan, that next year, as the entries came in for the over 35, I tracked them. And a whole bunch of these drop dead knockout athletes were 40 and 45, and no one knew. So I knew that we could then support doing an over 40 division and an over 45 division. So I'm sitting there a couple of years ago, and I'd instituted the over 50 division in women's bikini. And I happened to have a break in the action. I'm sitting in the front row watching the event, and the over 50 women were out there. And they looked spectacular. They had great shape. They were in great condition. Everything about them, they're fantastic athletes. Jim Manion happened to walk through the curtain. He came over and sat down, and he looked up. He goes, what class is this? And I go, over 50 bikini. And he says, you've got to be kidding me. Just as they made the turn, the head judge says, ladies, turn to the rear. Now here's a whole bunch of ladies, and there's no saggy butts, and they're in great condition. They look healthy and fantastic. This is what's possible. And now, we've got 55 and 60 because these people have learned how to do this. The disappointing thing is this, I approach companies a lot and I say, look, if you're looking to put advertising money into something, it should be these Masters divisions. I mean, these people are walking, talking reps for what good health can do. And you should be supporting them and their events. Bring them in as reps, have them out there doing seminars, have them there at your booth space, trumpeting your supplements. The companies haven't completely caught on the way they should. This master division is slamming. They have learned how to do it better. A lot of the guys, they're out there, healthy bodies, healthy joints and tendons and ligaments, living the life. It's fantastic. It's so cool. That's why last year I started the Masters World Championships in Pittsburgh, and it's going to be bigger than ever this year. And what a cool title to win, Masters World Champion. Not bad. So they excite me. And here's what's cool. A lot of the guys that get up into their 50s, they've been at this with me at these events. Some of them since '93. We lost a close friend to one of our officials who was one of my best friends to a heart attack. And, he was a favorite of everybody. He was just solid, man. He was so cool. This guy from New Jersey, John Kemper. And so the show was a few weeks later, and I said, hey, we're going to dedicate this entire event to John. He was one of us, and he had it down pat. His perspective was correct. Hey, it's just bodybuilding. Let's push it and do a great thing, but let's not lose sight of what's up. And the guys, as I mentioned to the guys, they go, look, it was whatever year that was, 5-6 years ago. I said, well, Oliver, we've been together a long time, and we're learning how to do this better. And now what has happened is they begin to create friendships and relationships. So they come in almost a week early, and their families are there. And if some guy isn't at the contest, they're asking me, did you hear from Joe? Why isn't he here? Is he okay? So the Masters division is a whole different animal. Even more so than the Open division, which I think is a little bit more competitive in nature, a little bit, and maybe the attitudes change. The Masters guys, incredibly competitive, looking good. You look up, there's this guy with a body that looks like he's 30, but he's got a gray mustache and gray hair, and still got great skin tone because they're living the lifestyle and balance and safety and harmony. It's really cool.
Yeah, it really is. I think for people who are outside of the sport and they look and they see and they still have the they're under the impression of like all the negative stereotypes of bodybuilding. I think right away, you could push them to the Masters and like, look at this. This is what really it's all about. This is the true potential of somebody kind of living, like you say, living the lifestyle and doing it well and being consistent and understanding that balance and understanding the motivation behind, why am I really doing this and all those things, all the positive sides of it. I think that's such like a cool area to really push that marketing and push just to make it more for the average person to be more, I think, approachable, just the sport in general.
Well, no question. And, they get after it. They love it. They become the matriarch or the patriarch of their families in many cases. And they set the tone. And, my grandson, he looks up. I bring him to the events. And he sees the way I eat. He knows I'm at the gym training. And it winds up having an effect. So you lead by example. It's incredible. I can see the benefits of it all the time. We were talking about customer service a little earlier, and I did not yet at one point. I didn't have a website, nor did we do online registrations. A number of years ago, my brother built me a website. He's the brains of the family, and we have now online registration, and we stepped into the new millennium, frankly. But back in the day, even when I had as many as, I think the last year was like 800 athletes at the Masters Nationals, everything got mailed to me. It was cool, just the way it was. But I would call everybody, every single athlete. I'd go, hey, it's Gary from the Masters Nationals. Got your entry. Look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. Sometimes if they answered, you gave them a chance to ask questions. And I remember one funny thing. My friend was sitting there selling tickets, but there was a bunch of people lined up coming to check-ins. And there was a first-time competitor, never been at the show before, first time in that show. And the girl was telling another girl in line, she goes, you know what, he called me. And the girl goes, yeah, he calls everybody. And this girl goes, that's impossible. There got to be 900 people in this contest. And she goes, no, I'm telling you, he calls everybody. And what had happened was I called this people's phone, the girl's phone. I go, hey, it's Gary from the Masters Nationals. Got your entry. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Well, her boyfriend got the message. And he's flipping out saying, who the hell is this guy saying he's going to see you in a couple of weeks? She goes, well, I don't know. Well, so the major fight, this guy goes off. And she goes, well, I don't know, maybe he calls all the athletes. He goes, there's no shot this guy calls all the athletes. He goes, if anything, he calls every girl, I guarantee it. So they get to the contest, and this girl finds out the other girl says, vouches, yeah, he calls everybody. She goes, I think he just calls the girls. The girl goes, nope. He called my boyfriend too. We live in the same house. He calls him too. And the guy comes over, he goes, yeah, he called me too. Calls everybody. So this girl, who was first time, she yanks her boyfriend over and goes, you SOB. He calls everybody. He goes, you ruined my life for 3 weeks. So I had to explain to people, uh, at the meeting the next day, I said, hey, how many of you received a phone call? And hands went up, guys, girls, everybody. I go, I just want this to be an example that I am not using the registration list as match.com. I go, it's customer service, period. But I've pushed all of our promoters to do that. And it's amazing the response from the athletes, because you call somebody and when they realize what the number is, and they figure right away something's wrong. Something's going wrong with the registration, any number of things. And they go, yeah, what is it? And I go, and we'll go, well, we just happy to tell you we received your registration. And thanks for choosing this event. Any questions? Anything we can do for you? And they're blown away, completely blown away, which speaks volumes about what people don't do, but
100%.
cool that our people do.
Yeah. In every aspect. I mean, even just like whenever you call a company nowadays, if you're lucky, you know, if you're talking to somebody within 2 or 3 minutes, much less 30 minutes, you know, it's just those small things I feel like we've lost within our society, just like treating people like people and like really truly caring about their experience in anything. And it's just things have gotten so big, and I'm not, you know, referring to bodybuilding, just at like business has gotten so big, it's you've lost that human touch.
It's necessary everywhere. I'm gonna give you a quick example. You and I were talking about how my email's been shot for 3 days, and I've been trying to get through it. And okay, I'm a dinosaur at this anyway, so it's been a mess. And the website for that company I'm dealing with is third rate, really bad. So finally, someone came out today, this afternoon. Nice guy came, got here at 10 a.m. and starts to troubleshoot it, and he's trying to figure it out. So I'm sitting here watching, and he begins to go through the mechanism I was going through for the last 2 days through their website. And at some point, he goes, I cannot believe this. And I said, my man, welcome to my world. I said, I was ready to start to throw that hard drive out the window. And now he was there 2 hours, count them, 2, going through the same rigmarole I've been going through for the last 2 days. And he's in shock. Now, this is one of their people. And he had no idea. He goes, I cannot believe this is the case. I go, well, this is what your customers are dealing with, my man. So you're right. I mean, I make it a point to thank someone when they do a great job, because too often people don't. You know, I was at a restaurant recently, and the waitress did an incredible job. Great, 100%. So not only did I give her a good tip, I also asked somebody as I was leaving, is there a manager here? And they go, yeah, is there a problem? I go, no, I just want to talk to the manager. He came over. I go, my man, you need 3 more like her. She's unbelievable. He goes, wow, I really appreciate that. I go, well, I can only imagine you hear a lot of complaints. You should hear the good stuff from time to time. And I said to him, the shame of it is that she sticks out like a sore thumb, because she does such a good job in other places people don't. And that's where the real loss is.
For sure. It's funny you mentioned that. My sister actually was going through the drive-through the other day, and she gave the order and said thank you, and the person on the other side taking the order was like, oh my gosh, you just made my day. And my sister was like, I'm glad I could, but it's so sad that just simply by saying thank you, like you're making someone's day these days. It's such a, human connection is such a lost art.
Life's simple pleasures. And I think one thing we've done is we've really reached out to people. Last year we had a national seminar here in Pittsburgh, and had everybody come in from around the country, all of our officials. And a large part of it was just a training seminar on how the higher ups want us to do things. And sometimes you just have to point out little things that work, and remind people. It goes a long way. Customer service, man, it's everything.
How do you think the the Masters Olympia, this year's Masters Olympia will have an impact on the Olympia at the end of the year?
I don't think it will have an effect on the Open Olympia in November. But it's so cool that they're bringing it back because they used to hold it years ago. And then some interest lagged. There weren't that many athletes getting in it anymore, so it made sense for them to drop it at that time. They're bringing it back now. There's a whole bunch of folks, men and women. I think they're going with 40 and 45 as the age groups. So there's a whole lot of people. I can't wait till this list comes out in April. I think the list is going to come out as to who's in it. We're talking about it all the time, and I told a guy the other day, I said, I'm sure there's people I'm forgetting, or I don't realize they're that old, who will show up at this thing, and why not? What a cool event. I mean, these guys do a great job. Jake Woods and his whole team, Dan Solomon, fantastic. Having an effect on the Olympia? Probably not. I haven't actually heard anything that the winner qualifies for that, so I don't know if that's the case. But the Olympia itself is just one big crazy animal. So always be great. It's the best of the best.
It's a really cool experience. I actually got to experience it in person for the first time this most previous year.
Yeah, it's way cool. I recommend people to see it at least once. It's a pretty cool event. And with the expo that they have now, and I think they're going back to Florida this year, in Orlando. So it should be awesome.
Yeah, really looking forward to this whole year, really, 2023, the season. This will be the first year that I'm within the sport of bodybuilding from the start and get to see it all kind of play out and really kind of understand more of what's going on. And it's been a pleasure and an honor getting to talk to people throughout the sport like yourself and Olympian athletes and even people just doing their first show and getting their perspective. It's just like, I feel like I've gotten almost decades of experience within just the last couple months. It's been great.
Hey, there's some really cool people involved. They're great folks. They all get along, and they've all got that same focus. So there's a real family atmosphere to it. So it's cool.
It's awesome. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was really good to get to connect with you and chat and learn a little bit more, from the promoter side of things and from somebody who's been in the sport and understands kind of like the transition and the evolution and all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate it.
Well, appreciate the time, Dan. We'll see you.
For sure. And before we head out, if you actually want to, shout out anything that's going on.
Outstanding events coming along. We got some new promoters in Maryland. Rod Smith is a new promoter for us. That's going to be huge. Jimmy Hornback and Bill Sibilia, a couple of our officials, are going to do some stuff in Kentucky. The Jim Manion's contest, one of the premier events, is May 12th and 13th in Pittsburgh. Masters Nationals, we talked about, it's July. The North America is in August, and we got the Masters World Championships. That's Sunday. It's going to be really cool. And then the really big one is the Ben Weeder Pro-Am Naturals, where the entire thing is drug tested. People turn pro from amateurs to pro, and the pros get automatic Olympia qualification. So that thing is just jumping, and it's going to continue on with the whole drug-free connection that we have. It's outstanding and really cool. So, yeah, we're looking for a fantastic year. Where are you from?
I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, cool. Well, we're down there with the Kentucky Bluegrass Contest in October, and we've got the Kentucky Cup in April 8th. So we'll see you there at the Louisville Memorial Hall.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.